how much of the problems that we're seeing with these nominations, whether it's with Dr. Jackson or with the CIA Director Mike Pompeo, how much of it has to do with partisanship and how much of it with the White House just not vetting them correctly?
Yeah, so I think the Pompeo nomination and the Jackson nomination need to be sort of put in different piles. You can have partisan ideological differences with Mike Pompeo, but he is qualified for the job, just on paper, to be Secretary of State. Democrats may not like his philosophy or his foreign policy views, but just in terms of his resume, his experience, he was first in class at West Point, first in class at Harvard Law School. He was a congressman on the Foreign Affairs Committee. You can go down the list. He was the secretary. He was the head of the CIA. He's qualified. Ronny Jackson may be a wonderful man, and some of the stuff that's coming out about him may be unfair, because it does sound like there is some nasty office rumor mill stuff going on. I don't know. But he's not qualified to run one of the biggest bureaucracies in the world, because he was a handsome personal physician that the President of the United States likes personally.
And yet, how much does he hurt the debate when President Trump keeps defending him and saying that it's because the Democrats are obstructionists, as he said during the news conference yesterday with Mr. Macron?
You can only bomb rubble so much, right? So, Donald Trump, whatever damage he has done to our discourse, I think has largely been done already. I do think it's ridiculous to say that this is all because of Democratic partisans trying to take down Ronny Jackson. The guy wasn't vetted. The procedure for appointing him wasn't done properly, but that is Donald Trump's mode. And we're in one of these moments. This is sort of one of the things I talk about a bit in the book. We're in one of these moments where everybody takes everything to 11, right? Everyone has to say the other team are evil. All of our problems are because the other side is doing something wrong. I'm doing everything nice. Donald Trump said yesterday, it's these people who don't have a very nice view of our country. What he was basically doing is accusing Democrats of not liking America, and the proof of it was because of the problems with Ronny Jackson, which is ridiculous.
And right now, we're all focused on Donald Trump. Media is in part because he drives ratings. Let's be honest, he's a terrific reality show producer, right? But it's not just Donald Trump. You said the damage he's done, but it's not just, he hasn't done it all by himself. We've had this problem in Washington for a while, the difficulty distinguishing between somebody we disagree with, but is qualified for the job. On the one hand, I go back to Robert Bork and make that argument. On the one hand, and somebody who really should never have the job. We seem not to be able to draw that distinction. Why not?
Right. So a big part of my argument is, for reasons that are complicated and having to do with the breakdown of civil society, the breakdown of family, we are starting to watch, and this has been going on for a while, we're starting to watch politics like it's a form of entertainment, like the way we root for football teams, right?
But at this point, it is a form of entertainment, don't you think?
I understand that, but the problem is that when you start viewing things as entertainment, you start rooting for heroes and rooting against villains, right? And it becomes this kind of thing where you don't necessarily care about the qualifications. You care about whether or not it's exciting, whether your team is winning and the other team is losing. And so a lot of the problems we have in Washington are because people are bringing their expectations for reality show to politics, and they're not the same thing. Donald Trump broke the blood-brain barrier between entertainment and politics, and it's not going to stop with him. He's a symptom of the larger problems that we have.
And as I say, we in the media are part of the problem, too, because we feed it, at least some parts of the media feed it. Is it irretrievable? Is there anything to be done to reverse it at this point? Because a lot of people complain about this, typically from the two extremes about the other. But is there anything to be done to restore some of the civil discourse?
Yeah, so one of the things I'm a big believer in is, first of all, we have a real crisis in how we teach civics in this country. One of the things that we consistently and constantly do from K through 12 to college is we harp entirely on the downside of American history. We teach people to think that the story of America is a story of just unremitting oppression and evil. I'm all in favor of teaching the dark side, but we should be teaching the upside too. We should also be teaching to have some, gratitude for the things that this country has done, and gratitude for things like the Bill of Rights, which we do not teach. A lot of millennials today have very little respect for the Bill of Rights and don't even really know what the First Amendment does.
Which is really interesting because where I come from, it's very normal to see these fistfights in Parliament, this pushing and shoving. So looking at the U.S. from abroad, you would always admire the level of civility that American politics entailed. But now you're talking about this becoming entertainment. So how much at risk is the U.S. of falling back into the muck, as you say, if democracy and capitalism actually pulled us out of it?
Right. So part of my argument is that when we talk about corruption normally, what we usually mean is about bribery and graft and that kind of thing. And I have a bit more expansive view of corruption. Corruption is when you give in to the worst elements of human nature. And so around the world, nepotism, that's not considered corrupt. That's considered normal. What's considered weird is the way much of the West does things, where you hire on merit, where you don't give contracts to your cousin or your nephew or whoever. And one of the problems we've got in the United States now is that we are no longer teaching or honoring these norms that are sort of contrary to human nature, and we're telling people, oh, that's just natural, that's what you should go for. Go with your feelings, go with your instincts. Of course Donald Trump is just going to appoint loyalists and family members because that's normal. Well, that's normal for other countries. It's not normal for the United States of America.
Is the ugliness that we saw during the 2016 presidential elections the new normal, and will it get uglier for the midterms?
Yeah, I've been going around giving a speech for years titled, Cheer Up, for the Worst Is Yet to Come. And I haven't been proven wrong yet. So I think we have to, in some ways, we have to get through, it's like a fever. You have to get through it before you can sort of start fixing the problem.
But as a practical matter, in order to get over it, to break that fever, don't you somehow have a connection between getting reelected and making the right arguments? Because after all, in Washington, the thing that drives people is whether they're going to get reelected. And thus far, the voters, to some extent, are responsible because they're sending people to Congress who are saying these things, who are not helping.
Yeah, so I mean, there are big macro problems which I address in the book, but there are also some just simple structural things. Most politicians, in part because of the big sort, the way people have sort of divided on ideological grounds geographically around the country, most politicians aren't worried about their general election opponent. They're worried about their primary opponent, which encourages you to take as an extreme position as possible, whether it's let's impeach Donald Trump for Democrats or let's impeach Barack Obama for Republicans. And as long as no one can get to the crawl space to your left or your right, you're safe. And a lot of these people, it's amazing to me, they don't really want to be legislators. They want to be pundits. They want to get their shot on Morning Joe or Fox and Friends, and they want to opine on things rather than actually write laws or jealously guard the power that they have under the Constitution.
They want to be entertainers.
Yeah, that's exactly right.